Give NFL teams their Christmas gifts for the season.
Okay, let's start with Dallas. We talked about them a lot, so we'll keep it going. The big gift under the tree for Dallas, I think you got to go with Sean Payton. I think that's... So, let me paint the scene here for you. You lose in the first round, which... Would you rather lose in the first round and make a really good hire in Sean Payton? Or would you rather go to the NFC Championship game, obviously probably lose because you're not that type of team to go to the Super Bowl, and talk yourself into Mike McCarthy, and now you're stuck with him for another couple of years?
I'd rather go to Sean Payton.
Exactly. So it might suck now, lose in the first round, fire McCarthy, get Sean Payton. Because I think he would take that job in a heartbeat. That's a big-time job.
And I never thought McCarthy was the guy for Dallas, though, either.
It doesn't feel right. That's a big brand. He's more of a hometown guy. He's with Pittsburgh guy.
He fit well in Green Bay when he was there.
Absolutely, yeah.
Just kind of like that Midwesterner, and it was fine.
Sean Payton feels big, though.
He's the kind of guy and the type of caliber of a coach that you need for a big brand like a Dallas, especially when you are the biggest brand in football. You're America's team. You need that splash at coach.
I agree. And then for a stocking stuffer, right, socks and stuff like that, let's go with a restructured Dak contract. Now, I'm not saying we got to pay Dak $20 million, but instead of $50, can we talk him down to $38 a year? Can we talk him down to $38 a year and extend out some money?
Yeah, you'd have to. Even if you can talk him down to $40, that would be a win. If you can free up $10 million, look, this is gonna be something that plagues whoever comes in to coach this team if they do end up getting a Sean Payton.
It's the cap situation.
It's gonna be their cap situation and their money and their financials. You gotta get that straightened out and in order before you think you're gonna win anything in this league. You don't see the teams that mismanage their money and mismanage the cap ever have any sort of success in the late postseason to the Super Bowl.
Yeah, go look at Chicago.
Yeah, they're not gonna make a run soon.
No. All right, let's go with Pittsburgh. Under the tree, offensive line with your first pick. Whether that's Peter Skoronski, Paris Johnson, I don't really care who it is. You got to go offensive line with your first pick. We can argue pass block or run block. I don't really care. Go get a good offensive lineman. If you're good, you can do both well enough. That's the weak spot, especially when you have a young quarterback. That's what you got to build on. I like the tight end. I like our weapons. Well, don't love our weapons, but I like them. And I don't think you go draft a first-round wide receiver with this. We have a good enough receiving core where that's not what you need in the first round.
And plus,
we can go get a third-round wide receiver who can step in and be the third guy on the team. That's fine.
Yeah.
And I like the tight end. I like Najee. So you got to go offensive line with your first pick. That's the big gift under the tree.
Right. And I think the Steelers draft skill positions really well in the late rounds of the draft.
Yeah.
So you don't really have to worry about that all that much. You have to go get a road grader. Somebody that's going to be able to open up holes for Najee. Somebody that's going to be able to protect for longer than a second and a half so that we can get passes off and let our receivers' routes develop. I think our receivers are fine. They just have no time to get into their routes and make their second, third move if that's what they need.
Right. Stocking stuffer for the Steelers. I would go depth at DB.
Perfect.
Right. I think our top couple guys. Right. You got Minka, Sutton. They're not the problem. I think the problem is once you get to our second and our third DB, the second and third wide receivers are significantly better than them. That's where you're getting beat.
And especially on critical downs. So you look at third down.
Oh my God, our third downs are awful. You can't get off the field.
You have to play man on a third down, right? You can't give
most
them that.
Of the time, depending
you can't give them that that little bit of
depending on the down and
room
distance
to make a catch.
Right.
So if you're playing man, our DBs in Pittsburgh are horrific on playing man and playing with the guy. Our linebackers are a little bit slow.
A little
bit. You need a little bit of help at DB. I think that would be a perfect stocking stuffer.
All right, Buffalo. I think the big gift under a tree is you got to get a new offensive coordinator, and I don't want to say this is a shot at Ken Dorsey. I don't think he's a fit. I think they've been thoroughly outcoached multiple times, especially on the offensive side of the football.
Let's not forget that game against Miami, the first one.
Yeah, when you have that many yards, but you can't cash in.
Yeah.
And I like Sean McDermott, and that's fine if you want to go defensive coach. You have to get a top-notch offensive coordinator. I don't think Ken Dorsey is that yet. Go look at Belichick in New England. He had McDaniels, right? So, Josh McDaniels, right? He was fine because you had an elite offensive coordinator. They don't have one in Buffalo. And Josh Allen's still great. Look at his regression since they lost Brian Dable. He's throwing more interceptions. He's not quite as efficient.
Yeah.
Has to run a little bit more because
schemes just aren't the same.
It seems like there's no scheme, there's no offensive identity until the fourth quarter, and the identity is, hey, Josh, go win the game.
Yeah.
We saw how that worked with Russ in Seattle for 8 years, where they're just like, hey, we're going to run the ball, play good defense for the first 3 quarters. Oh, crap, we're down 10. Hey, Russ, go save us.
Also, part of it, I think, is when you go from such an elite OC and
to just an average,
kind of just like,
an average offensive coordinator.
I would take him way over Matt Canada.
100%.
Like the Steelers, 100%. If they hired him, I would not be mad at all.
No.
But in Buffalo, when you are trying to win like Buffalo is, and you have the elite pieces, you need an elite OC, coaching staff, everything around that needs to be perfect for your quarterback.
I agree. And the stocking stuffer that's going to help this hopeful new offensive coordinator would be a run game, an actual legitimate run game, not Josh Allen dependent run game, an actual 23 times a game we can hand the ball off and get 4.5 yards a carry, wear down defenses, and actually set up a real play action.
Right, because you need that. You need to take a lot of the pressure off of Josh. You're going to see injuries follow from this soon.
Yeah.
I don't want it to happen.
You can't keep up with this.
Statistically speaking, if you are relying on him to drop back, 40 plus times a game, and at the same time be your leading rusher.
Yeah, that's not ideal.
That is not what you need.
Let's go Chicago. The Chicago Bears. They need under the tree, big gift, star receiver. I think that's point number one. We see it. You got to go get a star receiver for your young quarterback. Diggs with Josh Allen, Jamar Chase with Joe Burrow, right? That is the recipe for success. You have to go get a star receiver. The stocking stuffer, if you can, I would go in the first round. I would go get like a Peter Skronsky, like a really good lineman.
Yeah.
Because you can't have Justin Fields running for his life, and you need to get him some weapons to throw to. I think Chase Claypool would be a nice 2. Darnell Mooney, a nice 3.
Yeah.
You got to go get a 1. I don't know whether that be via trade. If you can maybe trade up from the second round into the late first round, go get a guy there. This isn't a really good high-end receiver draft, but it's a really good draft for like the second and third round. There's a lot of guys that you can get good value there for. So I would go get a receiver and go get an offensive tackle.
Look, you can't deny that it's an offensive league now. The teams that are successful are the ones that are aggressive and they go out and they make those big deals. And you have to go find that guy. Justin Fields, I think, has a pretty high ceiling. We've seen him do things this year.
Yeah.
He's been able to move around really well, extend plays. He's been able to rush really well, too. So if he doesn't have to run for his life and he can kind of sit back in that pocket and have some receivers to throw to, that's a recipe for success for Chicago.
100%.
Now, you do have to clean up a little bit of the contract stuff, especially on the defensive end.
They're paying a lot of money over there.
But I think that's at least a step in the right direction. You got to get your offense together.
Let's go with the Rams. Under the tree, dude, you need draft picks. I mean, they mortgage their future, and you can recoup some picks in the offseason. I would move Jalen Ramsey. You could probably get a first. I would look at moving Bobby Wagner. You could probably get a second. You have to strongly consider moving a couple other pieces, whether that be Van Jefferson, whether that be maybe a different receiver, and go and get a second and a third. Get younger, cheaper talent, and recoup some of the draft picks because you're losing. You don't have any draft picks. You're paying a lot of money.
Yeah.
It's something you have to do. And I think on the back end, with those picks, you got to go get wide receiver depth. We see now that Cooper Kupp's out, that passing attack is awful. It's not good. And I know Stafford's out too, but even when Stafford was in there, without Cooper Kupp, that's not the same offense. It's not even close to the same offense.
You just need some fresh faces in the room in LA, I think.
100%.
You can't be stuck around the same, and you can't just constantly bring people back.
Yeah.
So
you need some turnover.
And you need to get that infusion of youth, too, right? You have like a lot of aging stars.
Yeah.
You know, Matt Stafford, you got Aaron Donald who's getting up there.
Bobby Wagner, Jalen.
Yeah. So you need youth.
Yeah, I agree. How about the Detroit Lions, our 6th and final team here? First thing they need under the tree, you got to get a DB. You got to get some DB. Jeff Okudah has been better in year 2 now, but you got to get secondary help. They're just getting torched over the top, and the only way they can really win is shootouts. Now, granted, their defense played pretty well this week against Zach Wilson, but they got torched for like 315 yards to the air, right, against a bad quarterback. And then secondly, I think you need a number 2 wide receiver. I think Amon-Ra is a really nice, solid 1. I think you need a number 2 receiver to add another layer to that offense.
A little bit of depth.
Yeah.
I mean, you said it perfectly last week. The biggest kind of problem with Detroit right now is their defense, right?
100%.
Their offense is fine, except obviously on the road the numbers take a little bit of a dip.
It's mostly
Their
a Jared
defense,
Goff
though,
problem.
is 32nd
They're
in yards allowed.
They're bad.
And they are letting teams score touchdowns
At will.
all of the time.
It's bad. Yeah, it's bad.
So, yeah, we saw a little bit more of the break over bend for Detroit this last week. A DB would help, and then
They already kind of have a pass rush, so I think you need to get secondary help. Go get some depth at wide receiver, just to bolster the offense a little bit. But overall,
They're looking good.
That's our little Santa Claus game there. We're giving out gifts.
Yeah.
We should be consulting for NFL teams, honestly, at this point.